Hello! Welcome back to Boxes and Bubbles, where today we're looking at Hulk #1 from Marvel Comics.
Written by Donny Cates, art by Ryan Ottley, colors by Frank Martin, and letters by VC's Cory Petit. Hulk is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. If you've seen any of my other videos, you might know that really the thing that I like most in comics is the emotional parts of the story, character development, and I guess a bit of drama too. Hulk is a character you can imagine is kind of the opposite of that, right? He's a big green monster that likes to smash stuff. But that's really the surface of Hulk's character. Writers often like to take that idea and do something wild with it. In the past we've had things like Planet Hulk, World War Hulk, and most recently Immortal Hulk, which take a character who might seem quite simple and do something big and interesting with him. And while the Hulk himself is often portrayed as a big angry monster, there are moments when his emotions come through. And because of the juxtaposition of that angry monster character and that vulnerable character, those moments really have weight to them. Besides that, Bruce Banner is a character with lots of past trauma. So while on the face of it, and thanks to his appearance in other books, you might think that Hulk is all just about smashing things to pieces, actually in his solo books there's a lot going on. It's only been a short time since Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk run, which was yet another huge shift for the character. Given that, it was hard to imagine how anybody would follow that run. And from the looks of it, Donny Cates decided to go so far off the rails that we would forget we were riding a train in the first place. This is a wild new take on Hulk. Nobody could have seen this coming. If you had asked anybody, what do you think Donny Cates is going to do with Hulk? Nobody, I bet nobody would have said this. If you've watched other videos on my channel before, you'll know that I try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, because I think it's fun for you to be able to read the book on your own and get a kick out of it the same way that I did. This time though, it's not really possible to explain to you what's going on in this book without spoiling everything. So unfortunately this time, if you want to read this yourself, maybe don't watch this one. But if you want to make up your mind, you've read it already, or you just want a second opinion, then this one's for you. So like I said, this one is bananas. It's kind of hard to even know where to start with this. At the very beginning of the book, Bruce Banner is somewhere, and he's talking to Petit. It's clear that Hulk has been locked up somewhere after an incident that happened in El Paso. We don't actually know what happened yet, but all we know is that it caused Bruce and the Hulk to seriously fall out with each other. They are not on good terms right now. And already, this early in the book, there's a line of dialogue that kicked me in the stomach. While they're talking about the El Paso incident, Betty says to Bruce, "Please, you're scaring me. You don't sound like yourself." And Bruce says, "How would you know what I sound like, huh? How would anyone? I'm only useful to any of you when I'm not here." That line hurt me to read because I really felt for Bruce in that moment, because he's completely right. He's an Avenger and a scientist. But you know who's also an Avenger and a scientist? Tony Stark, who's arguably a much more successful scientist. And if they're really in a bind, they'll just ask Reed Richards. So the Avengers really don't want Bruce for his scientific ability at all. They want him for the Hulk. I had never considered that before. And in that moment, I really felt for Bruce, like he's being used pretty much. Right then, I had so much empathy for him. But as we keep reading the book, he messes that up pretty quick. As they continue talking, Bruce says engines to 20% and presses a button. The panel immediately following that is the Hulk yelling out and punching something. And then they go back to talking. Here again, Bruce has a really good point. He says to Betty that one day the Hulk's gonna come out and Bruce is not gonna come back. And he says, "The Hulk's immortal. I'm not." And again, he makes a very valid point. In Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk run, we saw what happened when the Hulk dies. He's able to come back via the Green Door. And that's something that I guess is going to be carried on into this series. But what happens when Bruce Banner himself dies? We actually don't know. Will the Hulk be all that's left? Will the Hulk come back through the Green Door and find a new host? We don't know, and Bruce doesn't know. And clearly, that's something that worries him. Toward the end of their talk, Bruce says to Betty, "Now get out of my head." And he turns around and she's gone. That's our first hint at what's going on here. And right after that, we transition to the Avengers who are having a meeting about Bruce. Again, they mention the incident in El Paso, but we still don't know exactly what happened. But there's a death toll, so that's not a good sign. Cap asks Doctor Strange exactly what's going on, and Doctor Strange is flummoxed. He says he can't imagine how Bruce Banner built this, and that the level of magic required might even be beyond him. He says he's reached out to every mystic and Omega level telepath who could do such a thing and hasn't found a clue. Let's just dissect that for a second. Whatever magic is involved here is beyond the Sorcerer Supreme, any Omega level telepath, and every mystic that Doctor Strange knows. That's like a huge deal, isn't it? I'm super curious to find out what on earth is so powerful in the Marvel Universe that even Doctor Strange is flabbergasted. I really want to know what's going on. But he explains that Bruce Banner has split his mind into pieces and kind of built the Hulk into what he calls a starship. That analogy is a little bit strange if you ask me. Actually, I feel more like the Hulk is a mech suit. But maybe the starship analogy is a little bit more apt just because there's kind of an engine involved, as you'll see as we go along. And we get this page of the Hulk punching the crap out of the Hulkbuster armor. It looks like he's wearing some kind of jetpack, a futuristic visor, and he has these weird red things in his shoulders. I'm not sure what's going on there. But he looks jacked. I mean, it's the Hulk, right? He's always pretty big. But his arms look excessive in this page. Doctor Strange continues explaining what's happened, and he says that Bruce has stolen tech from AIM and then surgically implanted it onto the Hulk's body. Which means somehow Banner stood outside of Hulk, or was in control of the Hulk, and did surgery on himself, which is horrendous. He also explains that the Hulk's psyche is locked away, and Banner is the one that's in control of the body, at all times. And that's where the engine element comes in. We all know that to stay in Hulk form, Bruce Banner needs to be angry. But in this case, he's taken the Hulk's psyche, locked it away in a room, and he uses a lever to control the laser. The laser shoots the Hulk and keeps the Hulk angry, which in turn allows their body to continually be the Hulk and Bruce to be in control. Next, there's a really gnarly action sequence. Tony shoots a bunch of adamantium nanoparticle shrapnel into the air, and it's a metal that can adapt and change. So what he does is fires off a bunch of the shrapnel at the Hulk, and he wants it to go around the Hulk's arms and kind of bind him to where he is, so that he can't move. But Hulk uses his jetpack to free himself, pulling his own arm off in the process. Then he wrecks the Hulkbuster armor, rips off its arm, and uses it to replace his missing arm. But why are Tony and Bruce fighting in the first place? Well, Bruce is heading toward an old Stark Tech armory, and Tony is desperate to stop him from getting inside. And as another example of how far gone Bruce is now, Tony says, "You're not getting through here, not while I'm still standing." And Bruce replies, "Good to know," and smacks him straight in the chest. It really seems like Bruce doesn't care if he kills Tony or not. He's going to get to whatever it is that he's looking for. And what he's after is something that Tony's been working on. During the King in Black event, Tony piloted a Celestial, and since then, he's been building something called Project Arc. He's been using celestial energy to create a wormhole which will lead to a pocket dimension, and Tony's intention was to use that to evacuate people in case there was another extinction level event. So Bruce says to Tony, "I'm gonna need to borrow it," and Tony says, "No, it's not safe." And yet another kick in the teeth here. Bruce says, "Isn't that what you want, Tony? To be rid of me?" And Tony doesn't even deny it for a second. He just says, "Not like this." He says, "Listen to me. You could die in there. We have no idea where it will take you." But that's exactly what Bruce is counting on, because he says, "Goodbye, Tony." And he jumps into the wormhole. The issue ends on a pre-recorded audio message that Bruce sends out after he jumps into the wormhole. It says, "If you can hear this message, then I am already gone. I am broadcasting this not to explain myself, but as a warning. I'm leaving. Not because I hate you, not because I'm scared of you. I'm leaving because none of you will know how to deal with what I'm going to become. You all have your little plans, your armored suits, your rocket ships, all of your clever ideas on how to deal with my monster, should his actions not prove to be in your best interests. But you aren't dealing with him anymore. You're dealing with me. And I promise, you have no plan for me, because I am not controlled by my rage anymore. I am fueled by it." And that's the end of the issue. So as I said at the beginning of the video, I don't think anyone would have guessed that this is the direction Hulk will be going in. It's yet another giant swing for the character, but I think that's what we needed after how acclaimed Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk was, and how much it added to the mythology of Hulk. Donny Cates is going in a crazy new direction, but he's still acknowledging the things that Ewing did. But the main thing that has me so excited is that this book took a turn I did not see coming. I thought that the crux of the plot was going to be everybody dealing with Hulk on Earth, but that's not how it turned out. At the end of this book, he jumps through a wormhole, and nobody, including himself, knows where he's going. And I have absolutely no idea either. I'm so curious to find out who helped Bruce do what he did, and where this wild ride goes from here. That's all for this video. I read so many comics every week, and so many of them are awesome, but there are only so many hours in the day. So if you want some other spoiler-free reviews of everything I read this week, head over to Twitter and follow me at Boxes and Bubbles to hear about everything that I didn't have time to make videos for. Boxes and Bubbles is a passion project right now. I'm doing this because I want to. I have no intention of blowing up. That said, it does take a lot of time and effort to make these videos, so if you fancy giving me a hand, tell your friends and check back for a new video about once a week. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye!